They hurt you with a smile. Now they cry every time someone else loves like you. You forgave them. That's why life won't. They threw you away, now every embrace feels counterfeit. They celebrated your breaking. Now they mourn in secret. They kissed your scars, then carved deeper. The silence remembers. They called you too much, now nothing feels enough. You gave them softness. They mistook it for something disposable. They held your soul like glass. Now they walk on shards. They danced in your absence until the music played your name. They tasted your love and spat it out, now their mouth burns with ghosts. You poured light into them. They painted you as shadow. You were the sanctuary. They chose the storm. You gave warmth. They froze in their own cruelty. They mocked your pain, now dream of your eyes. Your goodbye never left their throat. They ghosted God's gift. Now even silence stings. They tore your wings. Now they fear your flight. They thought cruelty was strength, now they beg the wind for softness. You left gently. They relive it violently. They wanted you gone until joy came dressed in your scent. You were never the weight. You were the wings. They betrayed you with a steady hand, now tremble at your memory. You healed quietly. They unravel publicly. They laughed while you wept. Now tears fall when you're mentioned. You were their peace. They declared war. They weaponized your softness, now armor up at every kind voice. They loved your light, then tried to dim it. You were their calm. Now chaos wears their name. They stepped over your loyalty. Now beg shadows for grace. You prayed for their growth. They cursed your roots. They didn't believe in karma until it answered in your handwriting. You gave sacred. They gave excuses. They mocked your dreams, now haunted by what you've become. They bruised what heaven blessed. They said you were forgettable. Now your silence tattoos their days. You were the miracle they couldn't hold. They fed off your kindness, now starving for it. They named you dramatic, now drown in their own overthinking. You handed them healing. They broke it with pride. They kissed your forehead, then cursed your name. You gave truth. They chose illusion. Now they scream in mirrors. They said goodbye with a smirk. Now tremble at your memory. You were never replaceable. They were just blind. They touched your soul, then walked away. Now nothing touches the same. Your love aged like scripture. They read it too late. They were thirsty for control. You offered water from God. They envied your light, now can't stand the dark. You whispered forever. They echoed temporary. You were rare. They wanted cheap. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. They reached for joy, forgot it came in your voice. They brag about hurting you. But even sunlight refuses to touch them now. They made fun of your prayers. Now beg angels for mercy. You gave them a map. They laughed and got lost. They drank from your well, then broke the cup. You were divine medicine. They called you poison. They thought hurting you gave power. Now powerless in every room. They wiped your tears, then caused more. Now drown in theirs. You wanted forever. They settled for distraction. They avoided your eyes because they saw who they really were. They lit matches in your trust, now sleep in ashes. They held your heart with dirty hands. You showed them heaven. They chose habit. They confused your grace for weakness. They called you intense. Now seek that intensity in everyone. They tossed you like clutter. Now search for you like treasure. They turned love into sport. Now beg for rest. They feared your love because it asked them to grow. You handed them depth. They played in puddles. They whispered about you. Now scream your name in silence. They chased status. You were the crown. They asked for love, then fled when it showed up in you. They touched your soul, then blamed you for feeling too much. They forgot your worth. Now bankrupt in spirit. They walked away. But joy hasn't returned since. They painted you as dramatic, then wrote sonnets in your absence. They copied your strength. Forgot it came from pain. They laughed behind your back, now stalk your progress. You gave them the truth. They punished the mirror. They saw you praying, now envy your peace. They left you in winter. Now beg spring for your warmth. You were never a phase. You were prophecy. They chose someone easier. Now long for what was real. You broke once. They shattered daily. They couldn't match your depth, so drowned you in shallows. They hated your light because it revealed their shadows. You were the garden. They preferred weeds. They promised forever, then feared your consistency. They loved your light until it required their growth. You gave them everything. They can't even name what they lost. They called you intense. Now crave that fire in every cold hug. They said you changed. Truth is, you healed. You were medicine. They feared the cure. They thought you'd stay broken. Now watch your glow from afar. You were never too much. They were just too little. They broke your trust. Now trust breaks them. You loved them wholly. They loved you hurried. They wanted attention. You gave devotion. They couldn't handle your fire. Now lost in ice. They hurt you for power. Now powerless without you. They didn't know your silence was sacred. They named you dramatic. Now write poems about you. You rose. They retell the fall. They danced in your absence. Now music haunts them. They feared your love, now fear its absence. You gave roots. They wanted wings, now neither. They envied your light. Forgot it came from pain. They watched you burn. Now freeze in regret. They wanted to forget you. Even God said no. They begged for peace. You were the answer. They hurt you casually. Now the pain is permanent. You healed, so now they hurt. They tried to erase you. The universe re-inked your name. You were gold. They traded you for glitter. They broke your halo. Now fear your thunder. They denied your love. Now feel the famine. They silenced you. Now haunted by your echoes. You gave them the sacred. They defiled it. They doubted your soul. Now dream of it. They wanted the idea of you, not your presence. They mocked your tears. Now drink their own. They buried your love. But the grave glows. They thought you'd chase. You walked, and heavens followed. They rejected what they prayed for. You offered wholly. They wanted easy. They planted wounds. You bloomed anyway. They thought silence meant surrender. They chose pride. Now cradle regret. You left. But your energy remains. They cursed your name. Now it echoes with glory. You were the spark. They feared fire. They watched you cry. Now cry alone. You spoke truth. They answered in denial.